Tell everybody what the Mesha Stele is.
The Mesha Stele is a basalt monument that was discovered in 1868, and it tells the story. It's one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time, in my estimation, because in many ways it confirms a biblical story from 2 Kings chapter 3. 2 Kings chapter 3 talks about a battle after the death of Ahaziah. You have the next king comes up. There is this enormous tribute demanded of the king of Moab, and we're talking about the northern tribes of Israel had this big tribute placed on the land of Moab. Well, the king there is a king by the name of Mesha, and during the turmoil resulting in the death of Israel's king, he thinks, Nehemia, that he no longer has to pay taxes. So he tries to not pay his tribute, and the king in the north teams up with Jehoshaphat in the kingdom of Judah and the king of Edom. This is 2 Kings 3, and they decide they're going to swing around the south end of the Dead Sea. They're going to bring Mesha back under subjugation and make him pay his bills. And so the long of the short of that story is that King Mesha, according to the biblical account, comes to battle. He thinks he can take the link of the chain with Edom. Badly mistaken. By the way, Elijah the prophet's involved. Elisha the prophet is involved in this story. And the story is that God says, you're going to be fine. You're going to win. King Mesha battles them off ultimately. And then the biblical story ends just very strangely. Wrath came upon Israel and they returned back home. Well, what people found shocking about the Moabite stone, the Mesha Stele, is even though it's from the opponent's viewpoint, there are like 18 or 19 correspondences. Like you go, wow, a correlation. So maybe the Bible story is true.
It definitely happened. The details, it's interesting. I did an interview with Dr. Michael Oren on the 6 Day War, and he wrote like the definitive historical study on it. And he talked about how the Syrians, I think at the time they'd only ever written one book about the 6 Day War, and the person who wrote it was executed, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
And so it's a common thing today that when people write histories and they tell it from their perspective, depending on the agenda they're trying to promote, either they never lose the war or they were horribly humiliated. And that's all the more reason, like in China, the narrative is, we were horribly humiliated by Western powers, so we have to resist the West and not be humiliated again. And it's something that drives the dialogue, how they retell a story from 200 years ago, from like the Opium War of 1842. And is that exactly what happened? Well, we have a different story in the West. But there are correspondences, like you say, and that's what's so interesting to me, is this is the Moabite story. And in the Moabite story, the hero is Mesha and his god Chemosh.
That's correct.
Whereas in the Israelite story, the hero are the kings of the Israelite kings and the God of Israel, Yehovah. And I think I find that fascinating.
But let me tell you, the thing that really and by the way, that's in my book too. I tell the whole story, but I will say this: not only does the Mesha Stele, Mesha is giving glory to his God that ultimately Israel went back home. But what's fascinating is here is an inscription in stone dated. No scholar of any reputation says that it's fake, and it mentions in line 31 the name Yehovah. Now it's not pointed as so many manuscripts as you discovered, but it says Yehovah, and it
Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is there. The pronunciation's a separate question. So and until recently, it was argued that was the oldest surviving inscription mentioning Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, the God of Israel, and arguably it's the oldest undisputed still the oldest
That's
undisputed.
right. That's what I would say.
Certainly
Yeah.
in Hebrew characters. In this case, we'd call it Phoenician, but it's Moabite, right? But it's the same
Yeah.
22-letter alphabet.
That's right.